NoFap is absurd. And I'm going to talk about why it's absurd. The proponents of NoFap seem to think that release with a partner is somehow in no way interferes with your functioning the way that fapping might. And I disagree, because what you're talking about, the NoFap, is not flooding your body constantly with prolactin. Because every time the human male reaches climax, there is a release of prolactin, which is the thing that makes you feel tired and less motivated. And so somebody who has a habit of constantly achieving release multiple times a day, every day, are going to tend, and I say tend because everyone's different, tend to feel tired and unmotivated. So you have people who don't do anything day in, day out, but cause themselves to release. Now, if you had a partner and you were doing this day in, day out, you would feel the same way. So it's not about addiction to self-release. It's addiction to release that's the problem. And if you had a willing partner who is willing to go 5, 6, 7, 10 times a day, it's no different than you doing it by yourself. Now, you might get a certain emotional satisfaction because you enjoy your partner's body, you enjoy the interaction, but the fundamental underlying chemical issue is the constant flooding your body with prolactin. Now, somebody who has a prolactinoma, which is a tumor on the pituitary gland that causes excess prolactin release constantly, someone with a prolactinoma is going to feel just as run down and unmotivated as someone with a release problem. The problem is chemical. Now, the wisdom is how often you should allow yourself release. Because the flip side of constant release is none. Now, when it comes to none, you also have a constant buildup of sexual energy, so to speak, horniness. And that can become just as distracting as constantly releasing. Now, you hear about athletes in training, you hear about creative people saying, I'm abstaining from release because I'm focused on my creative task. And that is a real thing. I have done it. I'm a creative writer. If I have release at the start of the day, then I don't feel like writing the rest of the day. Doesn't mean I can't write, but my writing quality goes way down because I don't have the enthusiasm behind it. And it takes, in my opinion, genuine enthusiasm is required to be a very effective writer. At least in my opinion. Maybe other people have different experience. So, when on the flip side, you can be so wound up, it's hard to generate that creative content because it's always sex. It's on your brain. And you have people get a little grumpy, they get cranky, and there's that saying, oh man, someone needs to get laid. Well, yeah. And so I've been there too, where I'm creative, and I'm going, and finally I can't focus anymore. I'm like, what's going on here? And I'm getting cranky. And I do the normal thing. You take a break from what you're writing, you go work on something, you go do something unrelated, you go do something boring, whatever. I hope your creativity comes back. And no matter what, you're like, oh God, I'm still cranky. I'm like, yeah, I need to get off. Doesn't mean I couldn't, a few days later continue writing. But if I want to deal with it right now, I go deal with it, release. I'm like, oh God, it was just the noise. It was the mental noise, the hormonal mental noise of the biological imperative that was distracting me. Because then I go back to being creative again. It's a real thing. It varies from person to person. Some guys run best, once a day. Some guys run best once a week. Some run best 3 times a week. Whatever. Okay? It depends on who you are. And it doesn't mean you might not indulge from time to time with or without a partner. Like, hey, it's just going to be a fun afternoon. But generally, there's a general maintenance schedule that's ideal depending on who you are. Now, when I was in my mid-30s, I was very reflective of my how often do I need to do this? And like many guys who are socially awkward, involuntary celibate, so to speak. Though I don't think I am an involuntary celibate, because like I said in my other videos, I've had partners that are just not a good match. I'll just leave it at that. And so, I noticed that my mood varied depending on how often I had release. And I want to go to work and I want to be socially functional and least anxious and just generally as happy as I can be in a shitty job. So I found that once a week was ideal for me. Now, if I had release on, say, Saturday, you have the refractory period where your body, it releases the prolactin, then it cleans it up and removes it. And by Monday, I'm pretty much 95%, and then by Tuesday I'm over 100%. Now I'm starting to get increasingly horny, increasingly wound up, and by Friday every innocent look from even moderately attractive coworker, I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. And a lot of people mistake that, when they say, oh, you become more attractive because you're not fapping. That's not the case. What happens is you're feeling hornier, and so innocent neutral interactions feel more exciting than they otherwise would when you constantly in the refractory period, when you're constantly flooding your body with prolactin. So I found the ideal for me was once a week, because I did the NoFap thing for 37 days. And don't get me, just wait till you get to 90, 180, 2 years, you got superpowers. No superpowers. What I found is 37 days. I'm like, fuck it. I had a bad day one day. I'm like, I'm going to just have her relax to get away from this bad day. And it turned out to be a lackluster experience. And whatever, I broke the streak, and that's fine. I'm not the least bit ashamed of it. Fapping once every 37 days is called a very reasonable amount of release. I found that my energy level peak around day 8, and then it declines slightly and then plateaus. So you go up, and then day 8 goes down, and then day 9 down, but it's then plateau. And I tend to be about average. And there's little fluctuations up and down, but the baseline for my energy level is probably where I am at day 7, because I go to day 7, day 8 up, and then drop down to where I was on day 7, and I go. So that's where I'm at. And so the best way to time it is I didn't want to go into work Monday not having all my energy and not feeling my best, not feeling so awkward. So Saturday night would be ideal. Do everything I have to do, all my chores, all my whatever, read my books, do creative writing, play with my cats, do whatever. And if I didn't have a date, which I usually didn't, then I'd just do it myself. Sometimes just once. Sometimes, if I want to make a party of it, I can do that too. In any case, it's maintenance. And so release is maintenance. Our souls are incarnated in these bodies that the females ovulate monthly, and the males are always ready to go. So sex is always just on your mind. The question is how you regulate it. No, you could go the rest of your life never ejaculating the rest of your life. Even if you have a strong libido, you have to deal with that noise. Now, you can learn to deal with the noise, just like people make an analogy. So I grew up, my parents, my mom in particular, picking my clothes for me until I was 16 or 17, where I could actually pick my own clothes. And the pants were always too tight, and the shirts were always too tight. So I got used to having tight shirts at my armpits and tight jeans and just everything in a vice, and you sit down and your pants ride halfway up your fucking calf and they dig into your crotch, and it's really uncomfortable. And if I'd sweat in the summer, I'd get chafed and all that. And finally I was able to buy relaxed fit pants, which were a lot better. And eventually I got carpenter pants, were even better. Oh my gosh. I discovered carpenter pants in my mid-20s. Absolutely comfortable. I also liked big baggy corduroys, which was the grunge thing in the 90s. I finally got myself a pair of corduroys. Phenomenally comfortable, flexible. They don't breathe very well. They're well insulated. You get hot, but at least you could move around in them. So I lived a life, and I thought I lived a meaningful life. When I found I could have comfortable clothing, I found that the constant stress of wearing clothes that are too tight and too hot was gone. I was able to think more clearly. And it's the same thing with your sex drive. You don't have to live the constant noise of sexual impulse. Yeah, you can ignore it. You can suppress it. I'm going to keep myself busy. I'm going to keep on running. I'm going to go build this. I'm going to build that. All this escaping, trying to run away that people call sexual transmutation, which is not. It's just running away from the sexual impulse. Or you can strategically release it, and then you don't have to fucking worry about it. And some would say, well, if you only have release with a partner, then that's reproductive. Actually, it's not. Most of the time, it's not reproductive. A woman only ovulates a few days each month. So most of the time, if you're having pretty regular copulation, then you're not actually engaging in reproductive sex. It's just, interactive masturbation, for lack of a better term. It may be delightful and fun. And you may take delight in making your partner feel great, and hopefully they reciprocate. That's not my personal experience for the most part, but there you go. My personal experience it's pretty one-sided. But back on topic. Yes. Oh goodness. Okay, so I appreciate the social technology amongst primitive cultures shaming masturbation. And it works this way. Okay, so if you keep your kids wound up, young people wound up, and you usher them into marital relationships as soon as possible, right? And so they don't know any better. They finally get married. They finally made love. They finally had release. Wow. Okay, it seems great. She gets pregnant. You're using their sexual anxiety to drive reproduction. One. Second, you have the elders of the tribe who are getting laid out of reasonable basis. They're getting their release, and they're able to think more rationally. You're what the Japanese call kenja taimu, if they mean sage time, the time after release where you can think rationally, because that excess sexual energy is not there. It's not clouding your judgment. So you have the irrational youth and the rational elders who are married, and they can drive the youth any which way because they're always wound up they're always wound up and angry about something. So they're always in a state of somebody needs an orgasm, and you can drive them to kill, you can drive them to build things, whatever. You can manipulate them. And so once they finally get married, they're like, oh, she completes me. I'm a better man now that I have a wife. I need her. You actually don't. What you need is to just bust one out so you can think clearly. Now, I'm not knocking marriage, but you're basically taking something that's a problem that can be solved with self-release and steering people out of desperation into a marriage. Now, you end up marrying someone you may not even like. You can't even stand this person. You're just so goddamn horny. Like, this is the person you're going to marry. Okay, well, whatever, I need to bust one. So you do. And you go, oh, shit. Like, you find out when you get along, man, this is a bad pairing, blah, blah, blah. You need to make that woman submit to you. You got to be the man. You got to put her in her place. Where, the men and the women can masturbate, have clear heads when they pick a partner. Like, a friend of mine, I remember in high school, he's like, never go on a date with a loaded gun. What do you mean? It's like, dude, you want to be so horny, you don't know if she's like crazy or something. You want to fucking go in there after tossing one or two off, and then you know if you really like her. And I consider him like, oh, that's interesting. I wasn't a dater. He was socially evident. I wasn't. But it finally got to the point where like, he's right. Where like I might meet somebody, I think I'm interested in her, and then I have a fantasy about her, and after release, I say, well, am I still interested in this person or not? If I'm like, oh man, that's a mistake. I don't want to be with her. I'm like, okay, then your attraction to her was purely sexual and nothing to do with anything else. It wasn't emotional, it wasn't intellectual, it wasn't spiritual. It was just, they're hot. You wanted to get with her. You probably would have tolerated a lot of bullshit just to have sex with her. No need for that. Yes, I know a lot of people would not have been born if people were rational about their mate selection. Too bad. We're in a time and place where we can understand the human experience instead of being just blindly following the tradition established by somebody, going back and back. But you could actually understand, like, what's the function behind the tradition, and what can we take from it that's useful and discard what is not. Can we skip this to supernatural mumbo jumbo and understand, not that there aren't spiritual things, because there totally are. I haven't talked about that stuff yet in this channel. We totally are. And there's spiritual phenomena and experiences, and but we just understand that, release is release. You're tired because of prolactin. And it would behoove you to strategically manage your prolactin release to whatever benefits you the most. And be honest with yourself. If you're just tugging because you got nothing better to do, you're bored, you don't have... Maybe it's time to back it off a little bit. Like, I found myself drinking too much. Not like your average 12-step alcoholic person, though. Where, like, oh, God, I can't stop. I just got in the habit of, like, just burying my miseries, my anxiety with alcohol. Like, even when I hang out with my friends now, I drink. I don't want to hang out with them sober. You don't. I mean, if we're getting together just to work on a project, if we have to, I don't know, if we had to go build something, fine. But generally speaking, I want to be a little tipsy. Just a little. Not drunk. Not incapable of thinking. Just a little tipsy. And I got in the habit of drinking whenever when I want to drown my frustrations and my anxiety. So I was, like, drinking all the time. I was drinking 8 to 10 shots a day. This is during the whole lockdown. The old COVID lockdown era. A lot of people became alcoholics then. Now, after a while, I was getting fat. I was dependent. I'm like, time to stop this. And I couldn't afford to continue. So I'm like, all right, let's rein it back. So I did. So I stepped my drinking back to avoid the bends. And then maybe I wouldn't have got the bends, but I've had to deal with intense anxiety, if not the bends. And I eased my drinking back, and I got to the point where, there's a lot of stresses now which I can endure without drinking. It's kind of like opioid addiction, where, like, you have pain, you take more, and finally, like, the injury is healing, but you get off the pills, and you're so used to not feeling the pain that the pain you used to be able to tolerate feels really bad. And that's how it felt. That anxiety and stuff felt like that for me for a while. But eventually, I experience all kinds of anxiety now, and I suffer through it, and I don't like it, but I don't go to the drink. I just let myself feel the pain. And now the pain's more, easier to tolerate. In fact, at my worst, I was working for one of the major retailers, an overnight stalker, and I was perfectly functional the whole night, but on my break time, I throw back a tall boy, and it would put me in a position where I can endure the misery of the job. But if I didn't have one, then it would feel horrible. And it felt horrible because I was so used to not feeling the pain of the job that the little bit of pain felt like absolutely terrible. And I think I'm beating that horse to death. So, okay, part 2 of NoFap. I'm going to talk about the political side. Now, the male sex drive, the female too, but I'm talking about male because I'm a male. Male sex drive is something you can manipulate. You can steer it along. And you can control a man 2 ways. You can have him constantly looking for reasons to get off as often as possible. Now, getting off all the time could be a cope, like drinking, like smoking weed all the time, and so on. So instead of, like, taking meaningful measures to try to fix the problems you have, you go to your pain relief. And pain relief's fine up to a point. If you're constantly just covering up your pain, then you're not really dealing with the source of the pain. So you can politically manipulate people, keeping them sedated, if you will, if they're constantly... You get them to release all the time. Just as you get them to drink all the time, or get them to smoke weed all the time, or whatever. Again, what constitutes excess varies from person to person. But you also can manipulate them the other way by keeping them frustrated all the time. No pain relief. No aspirin for your headache. No whatever. No drink at the end of the day. No weed. No wank. No release. Because frustrated people, you can manipulate them. You can direct their frustration this way and that way. Whatever. Build this. Fight them. Hate that group. And for if you have a non-rational population, which is the bulk of humans, aren't very rational and not very self-aware. If you can manipulate them into not having release, or manipulate a lot of people who don't have access to various kinds of relief, then you can weaponize that. And so, in particular, if you're talking about the lack of release, then certain political ideologies want to weaponize frustrated men and use them as foot soldiers. Your frustration was caused by this, your frustration is caused by that. We'll set things right so you can have a valid sexual release with a partner. And so you'll go and do anything because you're not willing to release yourself. You're willing to do whatever they tell you to do. I'm going to tell you there's nothing shameful about release, with or without a partner. The question is, how much is enough? And again, not that you can't have a party, not that you can't have, all-nighter marathon sex with someone you enjoy, and not that you can't have an all-nighter with yourself. There's a time and place for that. And usually it's not the time or the place, in my experience. Again, it depends on each couple. You could have two people who are particularly randy, and they're 3 a day, and they just take so much delight in each other. It's 3 times a day, before work and after work and before bed. Or maybe it's three in a row after a hard day's work. It's 3 in a row before they go to sleep. Whatever. Okay, so be it. But generally speaking, a lot of couples are one and done, and generally speaking, a lot of people by themselves are one and done. But sometimes you want 2 or 3. Okay. It is bullshit. And all the internet gurus, a lot of them, some of them make their money by you being sexually frustrated, buying their product, doing what they think you should do. So I have to say, I'm repeating myself. I suggest you find your balance. Whatever works, If it's once a week, it's once a week. It's once a month, it's once a month. With or without a partner. Keep your head clear. And then just get on with life. Like sex is part of life, but it's participating in it or the lack of it is not supposed to be the defining part of your life. It's a function. It's like changing the oil in your car. Thanks for watching.